the name of our show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Large Glass.
Hi.
I'm Todd.
I'm Terry.
Nice to see all of you on this Fat Tuesday.
Fat Tuesday.
Where we are indulging.
Yes, we are.
You know, before we, are we going dry?
No.
Not during a pandemic.
That's a long time.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've talked about this.
We have.
Yeah.
I mean, we could try to go dry and just like pick one day a week where we can have a sip here and there. Not that we drink every day.
We're not going to do that today.
Okay.
So welcome to all of you. It's good to see you all. There's Mom. There's Pumpkin Audrey. Amanda Toolin's here. We were just talking about you before we went live. We were like, I think Amanda's busy with work. We haven't seen her in a while. So good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.
This is great. We've got a cool show tonight for our Fat Tuesday show.
We do.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited too.
So I will say that we have totally botched the drinks tonight. So let me explain first of all. So we have artists from New York tonight, and so we had two beverages that were supposed to be New York beverages. And the first one was a beer that Terry was going to drink. I won't say who it was by, but it was a sour ale, sour raspberry ale.
Yeah, it was supposed to be raspberry, and you could taste it in there, but it was very sour, very tart.
I tried it. It was really sour.
Yeah.
And so we just, rather than suffer through that, we decided to put that one back.
Yep.
And we just grabbed a little La Marca split.
A little Prosecco to celebrate.
Yeah. Little Fat Tuesday celebration.
All
and then
that good stuff.
The way that I messed up the drink tonight is one of the beers that I chose, I was absolutely convinced and certain that it was a New York brewery, Rusty Rail, the Snowflyer, which is a chocolate hazelnut porter, and it's delicious. It's Pennsylvania. What are you going to do? Here we are. And
that's a tricky one.
I think this is yeah. This is not a regular cork. The splits are screw caps. Amanda's like, yes, work. Come on. There we go. No pop.
No pop.
Nice and simple.
No violent explosion.
No corks flying across the room and injuring our friends.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That is for you.
Ooh, that's lovely. Perfect.
So let us know in the chat what you're drinking tonight while you join us. And if you have any plans for your Mardi Gras celebration.
Yes.
And this is a chocolate hazelnut porter. It's black, beautiful. It smells good.
That's very dark and very rich. Look at that.
That is a winter drink right there.
Yeah, it really is.
That is a winter.
It's almost black all the way through.
Winter beer.
Okay.
So I miss New Orleans.
I do too.
Terry just realized tonight that Ellis Marsalis died, and when we were in New Orleans, we actually sat a table away from him.
We were at a place called Snug Harbor.
Snug Harbor, it's a jazz club down there, and he was sitting.
He was in the audience,
practically right next to us. And the way we found that out was the musician on the stage just basically made a tribute to him, and he said, "I just want to celebrate one of my longtime mentors and favorite people in the jazz world, Mr. Ellis Marsalis, who's with us tonight." And then we turn and look, and he's like waving to him, and he's right there.
Like, oh my gosh!
Oh my God! And
yes.
So let's toast to him since he passed. I mean, he didn't pass
Not
recently.
No. It was last year, I believe.
It was last year.
But yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Cheers.
Cheers. Happy Fat Tuesday.
Happy Fat Tuesday.
Okay.
Much better.
Is that better?
Yes.
You can handle that now?
I can handle that one without all the faces.
So let's see. We've got a few announcements to make, a couple of things we want to talk about right off the bat. Mom's drinking coffee. Pumpkin Audrey's drinking Pinot Grigio.
Ooh.
Pretty glass, angled
Isn't
top.
That pretty? Actually, Pumpkin Audrey gave these to us. So.
They look like endive.
Yeah, we love them.
They're like a little head of endive. Is it endive? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. You're like, I don't know.
I'm the queen of mispronunciations. I'm like, endive?
Okay. We're going to stop right there.
Stop.
Just so you know, Pumpkin Audrey, your hat that you won on #roulette has arrived in all of its, hold on, we got to get the faces out of the picture so it can focus, in all of its, get your face down because it can see you, in all of its embroidered glory. It is here. All right. Well, we'll show it on a different camera later. The cameras love the face. It tries to focus on the face. So if it can see a face, it won't focus on the hat. But the hat is here.
Yes.
So your merchandise has arrived.
Yes.
The T-shirts we have to get sizes from you on. So that stuff's coming. But we have taken a break from hashtag roulette in the weekly sense. We're going every other week now.
Yes. We have a couple of pressing obligations every other week. So we decided we're just going to go for it on the chance that we can do it.
Right. And one of the things that was really good about having hashtag roulette, though, is that we were able to bring our finds and briefly mention them on the show.
Yes.
So we're going to change that to make up for the loss.
Yeah.
Right. So here's what we're going to do. On our every other week show, when we're not doing hashtag roulette, we will each present one of our favorite Instagram follows.
Yeah.
Right. So that you can check them out. Right.
Yeah.
You want to do that now?
We can do that right now.
All right. Let's take a look at that. And let's see. Our first Instagram is mine. This is the one that I picked. And this is Nandor Angstenberger. And so since tonight's show is in the spirit of Assemblage, I decided to pick this guy out of my Instagram follows because I really, really like his work and think that he's from Germany. He's from Berlin. His work is vast. There is this real incredible sense of harmony amongst the most disparate forms. He's able to create these singing, beautiful, like almost architectural harmonies, sometimes machine-like, gorgeous pieces. So if you're interested in following him, he is at Nandor_Angstenberger.
Actually, because I'm looking at the Instagram right there, and on the top it says Nandor_Angstenberg, but right below it, it says Nandor_Angstenberger. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. Did I get that wrong?
No. You're fine. Look on his
I see it.
sheet right there. So I wonder why.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Do you think it just chopped it off because it says following after it?
It might have chopped it off.
Maybe that's why. Okay.
Yeah, Amanda says, wow, looks like a city with the facades peeled off the buildings. Yeah, exactly. It's almost like all the fascias have been taken off and here's the inner workings. But then when you get close, the collection of objects that he uses to assemble these things is really, really quite complex and quite beautiful. So so he was mine, and then we had yours.
Yes. So mine, I don't even remember exactly how I followed her. I follow a couple of other artists, and I think I went down a rabbit hole with her. So this one is at rdeborah191, but this is actually Deborah E. Roberts. She is an artist who works in collage. She actually has a lot of shows. She's shown at LACMA. She's been at the Brooklyn Museum of Art.
She's got quite a career.
She's got quite a career, and I was not aware of what she was doing. And she works in collage, and she was mostly inspired growing up by Hollywood and Renaissance paintings, but she always noticed something missing. And that led to some identity themes that she works with. So what she does is she collages and she represents people, African Americans who have been disenfranchised and marginalized, so that she can give them an identity and one of beauty. And I absolutely love her work.
Yeah, the pattern work. Oh, Carolyn Thau is here. Hi, Carolyn.
Hey, Carolyn.
Nice to see you. Happy Fat Tuesday. Yeah, no, these are great pieces. And I didn't follow her until you told me, oh, this is my pick for tonight. And so I went through and I was like, oh, this is great.
She's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is just a way for you guys in your Instagram pursuits to find new people. If you want to follow some people, we're keeping an eye out for you. We've got your back, essentially. So, okay. So let's, what's next on the list here? We've got some other things. We got news.
We have news.
We've got some things to talk about with news.
Right in that.
You want to do that?
Yeah, we can do that.
All right. We'll just jump right in then.
Just jump right in.
Okay. So let's see. What is going on? I have a few things on the list. The first thing is, in my attempt to have a segment in this that's keeping it local, right? And as you know, our show is broadcast from beautiful Hunterdon County, New Jersey. Not the New Jersey that most of you think you know. we're in rural New Jersey, and it's quite beautiful out here. And I think when Teenies is finished and we're broadcasting from Teenies, they're going to get a better sense of that. So in Hunterdon County, we actually have a fairly robust art community. And the Hunterdon Art Tour, which has been going on now for 3 or 4 years, has developed quite a following. They suffered a little bit of a hit during the pandemic, obviously, and they're trying to now sort of restructure it a little bit so that it has a safer, more options available to the artists for whether or not they want to be virtual or live and how they can schedule. It's basically a tour for a whole weekend where you can drive around the beautiful countryside and see these artists in their studios, or if you'd like, you can do it virtually, which is beautiful for our New York City watchers because now you get a chance to connect with them as well. The deadline for application to actually be an artist on the tour was extended this week, so they're going to February 28th. So if you're in Hunterdon County and an artist and you'd like to be on the tour, you can reach out to them. So their URL is thehunterdonarttour.com. Go check that out and learn a little bit more about that. We are also in discussion with them right now about also playing a role in that as the large glass and possibly connecting with those artists through our stream. We will have more news on that as it develops. Let's see. Carolyn says, so excited you will be part of that for what it's... yes, I know. Whittemore is hosting again this year. Yeah, I heard that you guys were actually part of that. We just had a meeting. So as we get more information on that, we will translate that and bring all of that to you. So let's see. Next up, Nola. Since it is Fat Tuesday, I thought I'd throw a little New Orleans segment in here.
Yeah, sure.
And there was this, I found this live cam that was on, I don't remember which street it was, but it was just barren. There's nobody in New Orleans today. It's just empty.
I was wondering what they were going to do this year.
They called it off. It's not happening. And so what has happened is, there are these crews. They call themselves, they're called crews, and crew is spelled Krewe. And a crew is any group of people that functions in some kind of celebratory capacity during the parade or during the festival. And there are crews from all different walks of life celebrating in different ways. So there was one woman who had an interesting idea for how to sort of bring the parade into a safer zone, and that is to actually utilize house porches. And so this is actually her name is Megan Boudreau. Megan Boudreau had this idea of decorating her front porch, and then what she did was she turned it into a themed sort of float, if you will, a house float, if you will, and she started encouraging a bunch of her other friends to do the same. Before you knew it, this was their own crew, and now they've got this entire tour of house floats that people can visit either by their car or on foot, but crowds don't gather on one street. So we don't have the super spreader event that we had, or they had, or we think they had. I shouldn't accuse them of having a super spreader, but it was assumed that that was one of the reasons why New Orleans got so heavily hit last year, is because, Fat Tuesday fell on
and that was right before it really
hit.
Correct. Yeah.
Correct.
Sure.
So this is kind of a cool thing that Megan Boudreau is actually sort of heading up, and I was kind of really excited to find that. So good luck to all of them, and we'll see how that goes. So we've got some birthdays to do. Is that correct?
We do.
And that's your department. You want to do some birthdays?
We can. We can zip right through these. It's some of our favorite people. I don't know if you guys know this guy. This is Shepard Fairey. His birthday was on the 15th. He is an artist that we talk about an awful lot. Graffiti, street arts, a lot. And you can also buy his images online. He actually dropped one today and we missed it.
We didn't miss it. I was on top of it. I was furiously clicking.
But we still missed it. We didn't get it.
At 12:59, when that clock hit 1 o'clock, I was still furiously clicking. The minute that poster came up, I put it in the cart. I had PayPal preloaded. I hit pay now, and I went to check out. And as I was checking out, it said sold out.
Yeah.
This was like an edition of 500 pieces gone instantly.
Yes.
This is bots.
Yeah.
They're taking them all. I don't like them. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I really believe that people are getting them too. I mean, he's very popular. So
Sure.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
doubt. No doubt. He
Yeah.
is. He is. He's doing
Yeah.
a good thing. He's a great advocate for social justice. I mean, his messages are out there.
Yeah, beautiful work.
You can go on his website, obeygiant.com, and check out, what he's all about if you've never heard of him or you don't have a lot of experience with him. Great guy.
Yep.
Okay, next. Oh, boy.
We love this guy.
I love how Jerry always has this pose of like, I mean, it's not my problem.
Yeah,
right?
he's fantastic. So his birthday is coming up on February 19th. So we should do a celebration for that.
I mean, I guess.
I don't know.
I mean,
We love him.
he might just be like, what do you want me to do about
Yeah.
it?
So he is a famous art critic, and
He wrote the book How to Be an Artist, which
How to
we
Be
were
an
reading some
Artist.
passages from for a while
yeah,
there.
I mean, I don't even want to say he's an art critic because he inspires and he teaches. Like, criticizing art is only what he is known for. That's like his job description, but he's so much more than that.
Yeah.
So I don't like to pen him.
Well, I think what I appreciate about him, if I had to put something on it, I would say that I like his plain language criticism. I like that he is an advocate for keeping the criticism simple, right? Which I think invites more people to the conversation, which is important to me, obviously, given what we're doing.
Yeah.
All right, and last but not least, we have another well-known. These are three people I think everybody's going to know tonight.
Very well known. This is Ansel Adams. He was born on the 20th of February. You know him as he is a pioneer in photography with his silver gelatin prints. Lots of beautiful landscapes and such. So his birthday is coming up this week as well. It's been a good week for like big birthdays.
Big birthdays.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Not that the smaller ones aren't also.
Oh no, I like that too because then you learn a little bit.
I got to tell you, Terry put together a spreadsheet with artists' birthdays in it that is absolutely brilliant. Every column is a month, every row is the day of the month, and then in every cell she's got them stacked up. And I've been going through it, and then, like, occasionally I'll be like, "Who's that?" And then I'll plug them in and look, and I'll be like, "Oh my God!" So even our artist birthday spreadsheet has given me, some really cool insight.
Cool.
We got to turn that into a website somehow.
We should.
Anyway,
I don't know.
Anyway, maybe not. She's like, don't take
I
my
have a
idea.
lot of work in that.
Yeah, you're like,
I'll just keep posting.
I'm not giving that away.
Okay.
Okay, so
All right.
first thing I would love to do is I'd like to give a thanks to Theoretical Matter for the
Yes.
Prime sub. That was awesome. We appreciate that, which leads us to our next point. We are having a giveaway when we hit 15 subscribers, and you
And
see that
we're-
little pink bar below us there
We're
on the screen.
almost there.
Let's go to a bigger
Just
screen
two
so that they can
away.
see it. It's right below me, that pink bar. We are 2 subscribers away from our giveaway. And in the past, we've given away pieces of fine art that have either been donated to us or that we've put up. We've given away books. We've given away drawings.
Yep.
So this time, we're giving away a piece of my work. So, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I'm giving away one of my cabinet cards. So if we get to 15 subscribers, we will have a little lottery for everyone that is a follower and happens to be watching that day. And if you're drawn, you win this. So that's an incentive for you to get out there and subscribe. Thanks to Theoretical Matter for pushing that along one more notch. We
Yes,
really
thank you so
appreciate that.
much.
Means a lot to us. All right. So let's see. We are at 8:18. I think it's time to jump into
Let's jump.
our work,
Let's do it.
the actual work.
Yeah.
All right. So we tonight are going to be looking at the theme of assemblage, depending on how you'd like to say it. You say tomato.
Assemblage,
Do you want me
yes.
to? Do you want me to break into my
Louis Armstrong.
my Louis Armstrong?
It being Mardi Gras.
I could, right? I
That's
won't.
okay, you
Maybe
won't.
maybe when I'm done with this beer.
There you go.
So assemblage. We're going to be talking about that tonight.
Okay.
Why? Why did we pick this?
Well, I actually came across one of the artists. Somebody had recently seen virtually one of her shows, and she's like, have you seen this person? I was completely unfamiliar with her, and then I started diving, and we fell in love, and it just seems like a good pick. Plus, there is a bit of a connection, which usually when we pick artists, we start finding a bunch of connections with other artists and other things that are happening. I don't know, it could be a mystical thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was going to say that, the one thing that I really like is when we find one of those artists and we're digging into that one person, then we're like, well, yeah, but look at this topic. Now we're on Assemblage, and what about Joseph Cornell? What about Robert Rauschenberg? What about Dubuffet? And we start going through all these other people, and the conversation really gets to be...
It does, animated.
It gets good, right?
Yeah.
And so this is how we kind of come by, what it is we're talking about. And so... I really enjoy that part of this. So I wanted to kind of, since not a lot of you have, well, I shouldn't say that, but I wanted to start from the beginning, right? And talk a little bit about Assemblage and where it came from, right? So Jean Dubuffet coined the term long after it had been employed for quite some time. In other words, the use of objects in making a piece of art, which is what assemblage is, had been done for quite some time before the term assemblage was actually brought about. Dubuffet actually coined the term when he titled these pieces that you see before you now, which are butterfly wings that have been collaged into a piece, but he called them assemblage, probably because to him, the notion of collage was a little bit more two-dimensional. I mean, think of breaking out of two-dimensionality here by taking a physical object.
A little bit more sculptural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but just to kind of get back to some of the people that were using this method before Dubuffet actually coined the term, we of course can look at Marcel Duchamp, which we often reference on this show, and the bicycle wheel. We could look at Man Ray's work. A lot of works that were leading up into the Surrealism era were certainly part of that. And so we see a couple of these Man Ray pieces. And, wait a minute, who's here? Official Duck Squad is here. Hello, nice to see you. I love it when the chat pops up.
Yeah,
I get excited when the chat starts, popping away. And then, of course, Picasso, although I would make a little bit of an argument that a lot of Picasso's sculptural works are more, paper assemblies rather than assemblage. The occasional found object finds its way in, like in this one, and certainly in this one, right? So they tend to sort of vacillate back and forth. If you Google Picasso assemblage, you're going to find a lot of work that is, in fact, not that genre. You'll find a lot of sculpture, though, of course. I hate username 67. You've referenced Duchamp before. I have. Well, I know you haven't been on a lot. I've referenced him not in full shows, but of course, I think you're pulling my chain here because you're like, really? Have you ever done that before? Let me know if you're asking that seriously or if you're just pushing my button there. I'm being sarcastic. Yeah, I knew it. But we decided to focus on two artists tonight, Joseph Cornell and Betye Saar, both of which we really gravitate towards.
Yeah, well, I will say Betye Saar was the one who initiated the show.
She initiated the conversation.
And then as you were looking into it, you're like, gee, you had mentioned Joseph Cornell and the connection. I was like, actually, he was one of her big influences.
Right.
So
right.
It's kind of neat to see sometimes the artist and who they were influenced by, and you can draw connections that way as well.
And you were telling me about some life connections too.
There were some life connections after I started digging in. Their backgrounds, there's some similarities. Joseph Cornell came from a fairly prominent family that had a lot of money, but when he was about 4 or 5 years old, his father died. And when he did, the financial status of the family changed. They bought a house in Queens.
Utopia Parkway, which I love the irony in that.
Yeah, and he lived with his mother and his brother who was disabled. He had cerebral palsy. And he was very introverted, kind of a shut-in, reclusive. Betye Saar also started off with a family not necessarily well-to-do, but her father died around the same age.
Right.
And when he died, her family moved in with his mother, so the paternal grandmother, and she was raised that way. So I found that their beginnings, even though they're two very different people,
absolutely,
there's some connections there.
Right. Official Duck Squad, thanks for the follow. We appreciate that. We welcome you to our little slowly growing group here.
Yes.
Yeah, so I really appreciated that you pointed out some of these interesting similarities, and that's what caused us to really want to talk about them together.
Yes.
And we've chosen some works, hopefully, that, might sort of speak to one another. You can kind of see the influence there.
You can kind of see the connections,
Yeah.
yes.
So, I love Cornell's work, and I've been looking at Cornell's work all through my, when I was in college and when I was in graduate school and, even into my making career now. And, it's funny, but I Hate Username 67 once wrote a little introductory essay about a show that I had done. And in that essay, he used a term that I feel so applies to Cornell and Saar's work, and that is this notion of wonderment, right? There is a sense of wonderment when you look at these pieces and how these everyday objects are sort of put together in both harmonious but disparate ways, and it creates this new language, this new meaning. But ultimately, it's a framed thing under glass with, there's some kind of formality that's presented that makes it like it draws you inside. It's a space you can kind of go and float around in for a little while. Ben Hagenbush, hey guys, just want to let you know I'm watching. Well, good to have you here. Oh, good. I'm glad you're feeling better. I heard you were under the weather, so good to have you. It's nice to hear you're up and about. So wonderment is something that comes to mind when I see these works of Cornell's. And, I think you kind of want to go into a little bit of Cornell's story, I think. Were you thinking about that? Did you want to talk? Because I can talk about that, but I don't want to dominate you.
Well, you know much more about Cornell than I do. For the most part, he was mostly self-taught. He didn't have any formal education. He had gone to school up until 12th grade, and then he actually dropped out. He didn't complete high school education. I know that as he lived with his mother and his brother, he did get a job in Manhattan to be a salesperson in textiles.
Yep.
And he loved being there because in Manhattan, that's where the seat of the art world was.
Sure.
He could go to galleries. He loved the ballet. He was almost obsessed with the ballet. He could poke around in thrift stores and certain places.
Yes.
And gather artifacts. And he was very particular about his artifacts. He was drawn to certain things. He mostly liked precious things, something that looked like it was valuable at one time or from travel. He had certain motifs that he absolutely adored. He loved birds and shells. He loved Hollywood starlets.
Right. One of the things I miss about New York, and this is something Cornell just had the prime day of, and that is, this ability to walk around and go into different types of like even junk shops.
Yeah.
Shops that sold collections of things, and they've so gone away and been replaced by these sort of brightly lit, commercialized places. I remember going down to Canal Street, and there was this store on Canal Street that just sold motors, and they were in milk crates all over the floor, and you could dig through them and just find just the right motor. Some were fan motors, DC motors, and for somebody who makes things, this was a treasure trove, and Cornell loved that. He would spend his time, and after he lost his job when the Depression hit, he actually spent a lot of his time still walking the streets of Manhattan.
He did.
Looking at those things.
Actually, and also the way I understand it, part of him losing his job was something that he wanted to do as well, because he wanted to spend more time making his artwork.
Right.
He was very influenced by some of the surrealists.
Yes.
And he actually segued into working with magazines and Collage and Vogue and stuff like that. So he would do some freelance stuff for them as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And he had an incredible collection of books, magazines that he both collaged from and that he obsessively read, which, gave him an incredible amount of knowledge about the world, but it was sort of secondhand and lived through these sort of texts. Ben says, I was digging that window-like design. Yeah, actually, Ben, if you liked that, you're going to love Joseph Cornell's work. You'll also love Betye Saar's work, because these collections are, I love how these function like, well, there's many levels on which these functions, but there is this curated design going on in that box, right? I mean, and when I talk about this idea of harmony amongst disparate things, it's like the key, the choral, the domino, the shell,
The sheet music in the
the
background.
sheet music in the background. There's
a medicine vial.
right.
There's a curious aesthetic going on as well as a museum aesthetic going on. There's
Sure.
a place of celebrating, and the way he's presenting it makes it precious. Like the way he's presenting it makes you realize, oh, this is important. Let's take a look at this.
Sure. And there's also, amongst the textural qualities, like a domino and a piece of sheet music would never go together, but they so go together, right? The collections of keys and then the various little small insertion points in the choral. There are so many different levels in which you can sort of talk about formal qualities in this. And we don't even, and I'm not even starting to touch on, some of the more content-related things in these that we could go into also. So, yeah, Carolyn, some of these are way more intense than others. Some are much more simplified, but also maintain that kind of, some, seem to have a story associated with them. Some seem to be, maybe focusing on the war at the time, because a lot of these were built right around World War II.
Yes.
So some have not necessarily a violent aspect to them, but you can see his angst around, elements of the war.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. So, the work, when you see it in person, is exquisite. It is exquisite. You want to hold these. They're so beautifully crafted, but at the same time, there's a you can tell that he had a collection of these in his basement, and he was rifling through the stuff and putting it together. So there might be a rough edge here and there, but it really has this really beautiful, you said it right, preciousness to it. That's fantastic. Oh, Am Schmidt is here. Ooh, the back of the canvas. I love that. Where did I miss that? The back of canvas. I love that. All right, I must have missed something there, but
The last
the
work.
last work.
Yes, prior to.
Yes, sorry about that. I'm talking a lot and advancing slides,
Yes.
and then somebody
Super
says something, and I'm like,
excited.
huh?
Yeah.
So Cornell spans. There's something we're going to hear in a video later, but this is also something that if you read some of the books about him, there's this notion, this myth that he was a recluse and that he didn't go out, but he really did.
He did go out.
Yeah.
But he did live with his family, and I think other than the art world, that was pretty much the social.
That was the span of his social
Right.
connections. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, there is a kind of contained, that isolationist, not that he was one, but he did have some of that to some degree. There's an inwardness to these works, right?
Yes.
And I kind of like that. I mean, just even literally in the fact that they're in a box. I love that kind of isolationized, I just made up a word, inward kind of feel to these. Wasn't it on the back of a canvas? Maybe I'm spaced. LOL. It very well could have been. I mean, he was pulling from a lot of things. Like this one, which is composition for a shooting gallery, I believe is the name. There's one or two of these, but it's hard to see in this one. But the glass is actually broken in this. We're going to actually see this in a video that I've got queued up. And there's a bullet hole in it, which is kind of wild. And one of the birds in the center is dead. But there's this kind of, weird carnival-like playfulness about it that's paired with this kind of warlike violence.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
Very strange. But beautiful.
Can we look at that video?
Absolutely.
Should we go over and take a look at that? Miraculously, my browser crashed. Look at that. Oh, look, restore session. Firefox is an amazing thing.
I'll do it. Oh.
No, they can't see this. Don't worry. All right, so let's take a look. Let's see if I need to just fix this really quickly. I do, so just bear with me. And we'll get you up and running momentarily. This is normal for us. I think we've got this, and we don't have that. So let's do it this way. Was this the video that you had found?
I don't think so. I
Oh,
think
look,
the
there's a
Betye
calendar.
Saar video is the one that I picked.
And this is the one, yeah, I remember picking this one out.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, there's my calendar. You can all see what's on there: Valentine's Day and President's Day. All right, let's have a look at this really quickly,
yes.
and we will go from there.
There's a common misunderstanding about Joseph Cornell that he was something of a loner and not the most sociable of creatures. He was very shy and withdrawn, and he worked at home and lived with his family, but he was constantly in touch with artists, corresponding with them, meeting with them, inviting them to the studio, going to look at their exhibitions, hanging out with them, showing his films to them. And the three works that I'm going to show you now have something to do with the dynamics of those relationships that he had. The first of them is this amazing work from 1943 called Pharmacy. It's one of a series of 6 known pharmacies that Cornell produced. Cornell was a Christian Scientist, so he wasn't permitted to take any form of drugs. So the notion of medicine is something that was somewhat removed from his own life. And here he's taken the sort of shape and form of an old 19th century apothecary cabinet with these little medicine bottles filled with all sorts of magical ingredients that Cornell saw as his playthings for this game of alchemy, which he himself played with all of his work. It was owned by the wonderful artist Marcel Duchamp. Cornell and Duchamp met for the first time in 1933 in New York at an exhibition of Brancusi. And the legend has it that they talked for a really long time about the city of Paris, their favorite places, the most beautiful churches, the lovely squares. And at the end of the conversation, Cornell said to Duchamp, "Yeah, I'd love to go to Paris one day." And Duchamp was staggered that Cornell had this extraordinary knowledge, all based on reading books and looking at pictures and so on, and he'd never actually been there himself. So, Pharmacy from 1943 from the collection of Marcel Duchamp. So here we have 2 works. The work on the right is another work in the collection of an artist. It's still in the collection of an artist, Jasper Johns, R.A., the great American painter and printmaker and sculptor of today. This is a work called Owl Habitat from the mid-1940s. It is one of a series of works where Cornell has recreated the natural environments of birds. Some of them are very much caged birds or birds in pet shops. Here we have a bird in its natural habitat with all sorts of bark and lichen and grass fabrics around it. Cornell could very much identify with owls because he worked a blue-collar job all day long and came home at night and then made his artwork. So he was very much a night owl, a nocturnal creature. So can be read as something of a self-portrait. And it's hanging next to this extraordinary work called Habitat for a Shooting Gallery, which is in Europe for the very first time in 75 years of its life. And it was made in 1943. It belongs to a museum in Iowa. And it has this extraordinary bullet hole which has pierced the center of the composition and a red painted blood stain on the other side. This has everything to do with the Second World War. This is 1943. Cornell was in his studio listening to radio reports of the destruction of Europe, these great European cities which are being bombed by aeroplanes, and he was distraught about the notion of destruction. So here we have a work about violence, and specifically the violence of war, which he was receiving at sort of one step removed from his studio in New York. And here you have all various exotic birds in here arranged as if they're in a pet shop. And these splatters of paint, which of course, being the 1940s, make us think immediately of abstract expressionism and Jackson Pollock and the artists that Cornell knew and met and exhibited with at the time in New York.
Okay, so, a couple of things that I want to just kind of point out in this is that, we keep referring to Cornell as being part of surrealist art. And this troubled me for a little while because, and I think it might be a question that some people would have.
Well, I don't think he wanted to identify with the surrealists. He did, but he didn't.
Right, but, and this is, I think, part of the problem with assemblage art, and I don't mean problem in a bad way, I mean the problem to solve with assemblage art is that when we're approaching making by choosing objects that already exist in the world, those objects come preloaded with a life and a story and a context, right? And now it's the artist's job to sort of recontextualize those objects in a way that is new or might add up to, create some kind of new meaning, right? So I think recontextualizing an object is inherently surreal because it has a known context, a known meaning. It's like this thing, this iron, like Man Ray used, has a function. When we see it, we understand conceptually what it is it's supposed to do.
Right.
We put some tacks on the bottom of that, and now we have completely taken it out of the context we're used to it in, which is inherently bizarre and therefore surreal.
Yes.
Right? So I think one of the big problems to solve here for any artist that's approaching making through objects is how do I either A, utilize the baggage it comes with, or leave the baggage behind and create something new?
Well, there is a dependence on the previous meaning.
Well, that depends.
No. I think you need part of the original meaning so that you can manipulate the context a little bit.
Perhaps, but there's a piece by Picasso, I'm trying to remember the name of it, and it is nothing more than a gas burner that he lifted from a stove, right? And he flipped it up on its end, and the two lines that run into it look like legs, and it almost looks like a Venus of Willendorf.
Oh, dear.
And I think he called it Venus of the gas stove or something like that.
Okay.
But what he did was he sort of took away its original meaning by simply placing it. It was a brilliant move. Let's just turn this on end.
Okay.
And he doesn't abandon the original context. He does rely on it a little bit because there's a little humor there.
Okay.
But anyway, that's my thinking. That's my thinking. Now that's the Duchamp vibe. No pun intended. Yeah, the broken. I think you mean the broken glass that's in the piece. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's a good.
That is.
Am's on tonight.
Yes, she is.
Good. That's good. So anyway, why don't we move ahead and let's do a little bit of Betye Saar?
Yeah, we can go to Betye Saar.
So I love this picture of her.
I love her.
I wish I could have gotten it larger, but I could not.
I love her. Okay, so Betye Saar, I was going into some of her background earlier. So she had grown up in Los Angeles. Most of her work deals with race, gender issues, and also spirituality. She began to collect ephemera as a small child and reassemble them. One thing I will say that I was thinking on the slide, because there is a psychology to collecting things, and usually when there's a loss, like a very large one, sometimes collecting is meant to soothe the loss.
Yes.
And I found that connection with Cornell and Betye Saar very
that's a
close.
Really
and I was
good
like,
point.
they both lost their fathers so young. And I'm wondering if that was some of the draw, but I don't know. That's more of a
really interesting point.
Yeah, but she went kind of all over the place. A lot of California universities, University of California on a scholarship, a bachelor's in design in 1947, and then she did graduate studies at several different schools: California State University, University of Southern California, American Film Institute. She got married during this time, had 3 daughters, and she actually also at some point was studying to be a social worker, and I think she actually pursued that career, but she kept going back to artwork because she was drawn to it.
Right.
Yep.
Well, I was going to say something on the collector mentality, because I think that really is.
Well, there's something about that when I think of assemblage artists, and not only that, I'm looking at the artists that we picked from our Instagram, and some of that might have come from, we had picked Betye Saar and Cornell first, and I'm wondering if that was in our minds when we picked our Instagram artists, because those two have also taken pieces from other places and recontextualized them and made it their own.
Well, it was when I picked mine.
Yeah, it pretty much was when I picked mine too.
Yeah, and I think for sculptors especially, and I may be generalizing here a little bit, but given that sculptors are, working you kind of have two jobs as a sculptor, right? You've got the piece that you have to make, but you also have to understand the material you're making it from. If you're a painter, you don't have that problem to work out. I mean, you learn your techniques, and then you go forth and you paint. Not that there aren't new discoveries along the way, but it's still the same material. With sculpture, it's different, especially now, not in the days of Rodin, but Rodin, you learn stone and you carve stone. But now there is this really diverse, I mean, anything can be a sculptural material, right? So what does a sculptor have to do? Well, they have to learn its limitations and what it's capable of, and how to connect it. Are you breaking your microphone?
I think I broke my mic.
Oh no!
It's like falling down a little bit.
I'm sure it's fine. But I think, given that connection to the materials, sculptors have that collecting mentality built in. There is an attraction to the physicality of the thing that they intend to make with, even if they don't know what they intend to make with. And I'm speaking from my own experience here. I will be at a flea market. And I wrote this in the newsletter when I sent that out today for those of you who got that. I'll be at a flea market and I will see a box lot of something. And in the letter I wrote about buttons, right? Because I had several boxes of buttons that you'd sew on a shirt. And I've never used buttons in my work before. But they were beautiful.
They spoke to you.
And when my hands sifted through them, and I remember actually I saw a video.
They were vintage buttons?
Yeah.
Because sometimes
they had that
they're made out of, yes.
Yeah, they weren't Bakelite, but they had that pearlescent kind of feel.
Yeah.
I remember Nick Cave in a video talking about finding a box of buttons at a flea market, and I'm sitting there and I'm going, yes, I know that, because I had the same box of buttons in my hand, and I bought that box of buttons, and that box of buttons traveled around with me for years. I did the same thing with this little bag of thousands of tiny little green shells. I had that for years, and I finally put that in a piece. It was like I had an idea, and I was like, oh, where is that thing? And I can see Joseph Cornell or Betye Saar like rooting through the studio, trying to find just that right object
that right thing
that goes in that piece.
Well, she has, just to kind of segue off, in her studio, she has everything organized. That because she collects themes, she'll collect a bunch of clocks, or she'll collect a bunch of
as in the image we're looking at now.
Yes, exactly. And she has them all categorized so she can go to the place where she's looking for it. So she's a little bit more organized than I thought she would be.
I think organization is subjective.
It could be. Yeah. We all have our methods.
I mean, my mom is organized, but I'm organized, and we're two very different systems of organization.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
So,
yeah.
But
your mom says grains of rice.
Grains of rice. Yeah, I did a lot with that too. And again, it's really about, there's a physicality to this. There's a tactility to this for the artist, and the act of touch relates to that act of memory that you're talking about. It relates to that act of loss, because one thing, when you lose someone, like when you lose your dad, like both of these people did, you can't touch him anymore. Right. You can't, there's a hole there. And you fill that hole with the physical thing that, it's a physical thing you're missing, so you replace it with a physical thing. And I think these works, as she sort of is exploring some of these themes, and yes, she's recontextualizing things from Americana that tend to really dig at her and her racial identity.
Yes.
And she's reorganizing them in a way that points back at us.
Well, that, and also to empower. Because she will take derogatory images in popular culture. Yeah. And that's one of her collections.
I love that Aunt Jemima holding the two automatic rifles. I don't have that in here.
Oh, that's one of her biggest pieces.
I know, and I could not.
She did a piece on Aunt Jemima, and in the one hand, she still had an object to clean, but in the other, there was a rifle.
Right.
And that was Betye Saar's protest, and that's how she used art in this art process to have a voice and to gain some power, right? Which I really appreciated.
Right. Mike Rader's here. He says, "Damn, just dropped in Cornell, one of my favorites." Good to see you, Mike. Thanks for coming by. And yes, Cornell's totally one of my favorites too. Betye Saar as well. I love, you and I mentioned something a little bit ago, and I want to get back to that right now because it's coming up. You said the artist relies on the past history the object brings to it. And I think Betye Saar absolutely does, right? She's really saying, this is what this is saying, in reality.
Right.
But this is not how everyone sees it, and I'm going to show them that, right? So when she takes something that is sort of violating or working against Black identity in the United States, she can turn that around and say, no, here's how I see this, and this is how you should see this too. And so the object itself and what it comes with is crucial. Whereas with Cornell, and this might have been a luxury for him, right? To be able to sort of say, oh, let's sift through all these beautiful things.
Yes.
But he is able to sort of leave behind that direct connection sometimes and create something completely different.
Right.
And that's, I think, where it strays into the surreal, where I don't think Betye Saar's work does as much as Cornell's work does.
You might be right on that. Some of her mystical pieces, I think, stray into the surreal. That's the other thing I was thinking about, is that they both had some spiritual influences, because he went into Christian science.
He's a Christian scientist.
Yes.
Yep.
And she was very drawn to mysticism and voodoo.
And voodoo.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was something that influenced her work. So they had so many interesting...
like weird parallels in there.
Parallels,
not parallels, but
exactly. Yeah.
But and the result of that could have been, you know, the choosing of the object as a means for making art. It could have. I mean, I don't want to necessarily say their work is exactly alike, right?
Yeah, no,
but there's certainly similarities we can draw from these.
Yeah.
And so I love those parallels from two distant people and the influences there. So I'm actually kind of stuck on the fact that I don't have that image of
no, that's okay.
the Aunt Jemima. Do we have a video we could show?
We do. I believe it's in there, actually.
Oh, it's in that video.
I think it is.
Yeah, why don't we
show
hang on, I have
that video?
I have this one, which is close. I mean, it's still it's sort of incorporating
and she used a lot of different imagery from the Old South too, because here you have the Mammy dolls, but you also have the washboards, and then she would juxtapose images and manipulate them. When we watch the video, you're going to see some really great examples.
Sculptore's here. How you doing, Sculptore?
Hello.
He's saying, I wonder how much Cornell influenced Marcel's green box. Now, the green box is one of my favorite pieces, one of Marcel Duchamp's favorite pieces of mine. And that's a really interesting, because they're not similar pieces. They are and they're not. So the green box is a collection of ephemera that can sort of be laid out. And I can see that being a looser, like if Duchamp borrowed from Cornell in that way, or if there was some kind of connection in that way, it's a looser connection, right? But a really interesting one to think about. And while we're watching this video, I'm going to see if I can go find a picture of that green box that I can pull up. That's going to be tricky, but I'm going to try to do that. So let's pop over and see about this Betye Saar video really quick. Let's put you guys there.
And I will say her sketchbooks are gorgeous too. She usually did all the ideas for her sculptures in her sketchbooks, which were also on display in the show.
Yeah, and it's a different approach to making the sketchbook as well, I should say to making the sculpture as well. The sketchbook functions really as a real hardcore plan. And so to me, I feel like I could be wrong about this, and if I ever sat down and talked to her, that's the first thing I'd ask her, is I would say, how committed to the sketch are you when you actually sit down to make the work? How far do you allow yourself to let the work speak back, and then you change what you're doing?
Well, there are images of when she changes sketches. Like she has the old sketch, and then
she
image,
sort of evolves.
And then
good.
she evolved
Good.
with it because she thought of other ideas.
Good, yeah, that answers my question then. All right, let's take a look at this video.
Betye Saar is one of the most important assemblage artists working today. She is known for reclaiming objects that have been used to denigrate Black people and reclaim them for power. There's this notion that an object already possesses a kind of energy, and she, through her work as an artist, can transform it. Betye Saar Call and Response is an exhibition of assemblages and sketchbooks, and this is the first time that her sketchbooks and her finished works will be displayed together.
It takes us to the heart of Betye Saar's practice as an assemblage artist, as a sculptor, and really as someone who's calling out racial injustice.
Betye Saar's process really begins out in the world. So at a flea market, at a swap meet, she sees an object and it calls to her, and she thinks, that's something I can use. That's where the sketchbooks come in. The sketchbooks are the place where she is able to work out her ideas for how that object is going to turn into the finished assemblage.
Betye Saar is embedded in the history of the African American experience in this country. She has been able to investigate images of slavery, of the African American diaspora and the experience in America of white supremacy and of racial prejudice.
There is this dialogue of past and present that's always coming up in her work, and I think that she is really engaged with contemporary issues and how racism is so persistent and continues to inflict so much harm on Black people.
At the same time, her art is also magical. It's interested in different cultures, it's global. There's a sense of mystery and wonderment in her art.
There's this notion for her that there's a kind of realm beyond the visible, and in some ways in her work what she's doing is she's manifesting that realm, making things visible that are otherwise not visible.
The Morgan, in a way, is the home of drawing. Here you can see great artists' ideas taking form.
This exhibition is really this chance to get inside her mind. And so I think in that sense, this is kind of a perfect Morgan show because it's all about the artist's creative process.
Okay. So I had a chance to get an image up of the green box. I just want to finish up with the Betye Saar's images.
Yeah, and that piece was not in that show, I realized. But
The one you were thinking, but the other one was,
but
where she's packing the two.
So there were
the
other
two
images
automatics.
like that. Yes, yes.
Pretty wild looking piece.
Yeah.
So when we look at these, we can really there are many very direct connections to the symbolism and things that she's working with, and I love in this one. This is a hinged box that closes, and I can almost see this African mask facing that Confederate flag as that box closes, and it's just
Well, I mean, that gets really deep too, because if you look closer at that African mask, that's actually the front, I believe, of a slave ship with the seats carved in.
Yeah.
Like it's a map looking down.
Yeah.
So she gets like really deep into the
Sure,
imagery.
it does. It goes very deep, and I really like the way she kind of keeps this. She also keeps a sculptor's sensibility about the way she wields material, right? And the way that African mask sits over that piece of parchment, which has that lock sitting on top of it. There's a really beautiful play on, how one piece dominates another, the different play on materials. It's really strong in that regard. I mean, so even just going into some of the formal qualities, which I like to do, these are fantastic pieces. So I threw this one in there. Unfortunately, it's a little bit small, but it's a really good juxtaposition of the sketch and the piece. It's a little bit hard to make out. I apologize about that. And then there is, just another sketch from her sketchbook that I think is really quite beautiful. These are all blue glass bottles embedded in a bed, which on some level goes back to that notion of wonderment, which I like, that's like got this shimmering blue light to it. And it's not, it's while the notions of identity and race are embedded in these things, there's also a certain kind of, allure and beauty and sensual feel to some of these things that really, it functions on so many different levels, which I love. Let me throw in really quickly, I want to grab, if you'll bear with me for just a second, I want to throw in that image of the green box really quick, because I think this is kind of a cool reference. So let's see if that is in fact here. There it is. So Duchamp's green box is a massive collection of ephemera, and Scultore, I love that you brought this up, because while we were watching the last video, I had a chance to run into the other room and grab a book from my book collection that I want to show as well, because I think this relates. So during the same time period, people like Merce Cunningham and John Cage were also part of that whole group of artists running around. And Cage had this fantastic retrospective at the Philadelphia.
It's gonna reflect our computer.
Oh, it is going to reflect the computer. You're not even going to be able to see this. But Cage had a show at the Philadelphia Museum called Roly Holy Over a Circus. And the catalog from that show is, in fact, a box, again, a la Cornell, a la Duchamp. And when you open this box up, it is a collection of ephemera from the show that you can leaf through the whole catalog. There, Cage was a mycologist, so there are mushroom recipes in here. There are compositions in here in terms of sheet music. He was an avid chess player, and he played chess with Duchamp a lot. So there's a fantastic show. There were chessboards set out all over the show. I'm straying here for a minute, but I have to. I mean, this is a good
Very
thing.
Exciting.
So Am's like, damn, that book.
Yeah.
During the show, there were chess sets out all over the exhibition.
Ooh.
And people were invited to actually play real games of chess. When the exhibition would close every night, there was actually a formula that Cage had written. The show was to be rehung based around the positions of chess pieces on the chessboards.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it was bonkers. And topping this box off is a picture of Teeny Duchamp, Marcel Duchamp, and Cage all playing chess together. Right? I love Cage has his cigarette holder in place. So I think, Sculptori, the answer to your question is undoubtedly there was an influence there across the board. I think the box became like this vessel. It was kind of to me, it's like a symbol of an inwardness. It's a symbol of a kind of containment, and also there's an intimacy. There's an intimacy to going through all of those things.
You feel like you're going through someone's personal items. Yes.
Right. Mike Rader's like, take the green box, add the Natural History Museum, a pinch of Mutter Museum, and might come up with Todd's art. Thanks. Oh my God.
Actually, that's pretty good.
That's fantastic.
So flattering.
I love you, Mike. That was beautiful. Thank you. Am's like, wait, this is a Duchamp show or a group show? The chessboards. That was a John Cage retrospective. If I'm not mistaken, that show was in 1996. I could be wrong on that. We'd have to look that one up. But so that was Cage, but Duchamp was an enormous influence on Cage and the other way around, of course.
Well, that's the thing I love about this process and, just discussing art in general, because this weekend, this was all going on in my head, and I pulled out that old box of stuff from high school and college. Todd made me this book when we were in college, and it's made of an old barn.
It's made of the corrugated roof from an old barn on my
Right.
property that fell down.
And it's a beautiful book, and I didn't know what to do with it for years and years, and then we were going over all of this, and then I started putting in old letters and such, so it really became like an art piece. But that's the whole thing with Assemblage, and when you're talking to others about art and you're getting all excited, and that's so passionate, and that's what I love about this stuff. So
yeah. But in the end, we're trying to do something with I think it's entirely possible that as artists we use this to justify hoarding.
You think so?
No. But I mean, I've seen some artist studios before, including my own, and you can go deep.
Yeah.
Digging through an artist studio when it comes to
there are all
especially
sources of
sculptors.
Inspiration.
Yeah.
And you think you might be able to use it. And I've been through artist studios too, like when we went to the Wyeth studio out in Brandywine, and just looking at his studio, he had all kinds of stuff. He had death masks, he had taxidermy, like really fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Just
to get to some comments here, Mike wants to know if the Cage book is available. Mike, I believe it is. I believe that the Philadelphia Museum is still producing that book. So it's called Roly, R-O-L-Y, Holy, W-H-O-L-Y, over, all one word, Roly Holy Over a Circus, John Cage. So I'm pretty sure you can still get that. Am says, I consider it shepherding. That's a nice way to put it.
That is a nice way to put it.
It's just that I feel like there are all these people that are supposed to be out there organized. Who was that woman who said, if it doesn't bring you joy, you should get rid of it?
Oh.
And there was that whole movement of everybody throwing things out.
What was her name?
I don't know, but there's always pressure to say, if you don't use it in 6 months, get rid of it. If you don't use it in a year, get rid of it. You want to know when I find out I need that object? The day after I got rid of it.
Marie Kondo.
Ah, yeah, yes. Marie Kondo. Mike's like, enabler.
I've done that though, and I've regretted it. So sometimes letting go of things isn't.
I'm telling you, I went to a yard sale. And this guy had this collection of these very, very fine brass tubes. They look like architectural scale. Like if I was going to do a scale model of an industrial building that had an insane plumbing system, this would be the perfect material. And the bundle was just monumental in its girth, because it was wrapped up with tape. And they're about 4 feet long. And they have just slight diameter, like ID, OD differences. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I salivated over that. I was like, and he wanted $40 for it. Well, that's not your normal $5 yard sale find.
Yeah.
Right? But I bought it. Mm-hmm. And it's still down in my basement. And there is no way in hell I will ever get rid of that, because that is like one of the juiciest material finds I think I've ever had. Mike's like, book is $768 on Amazon.
Whoa.
Oh, that's going in the special cabinet. Oh my
gosh,
God.
your special cabinet's full of stuff.
Wow.
Okay.
They aren't artists if they throw it all out.
That's true.
Agreed. Yeah. See, now everybody's getting active in the chat.
And your mom's all like, my problem, everything gives me joy.
She's like, I have them for jewelry there for hand riveting. Oh, you know what they're for? How do you know these things? Like, how do you know that? Okay, well, that's good. I want to know more about that. You can teach me about that. Mike Rader's like, I hope you didn't crack the spot. Yeah, it's not art if I don't open it, right? Right, well, I opened it. It is all intact. However, I have to admit, the outer case is a little bit scratchy. Like it's got a
ding in it.
It's got a little ding in it. But I've
it's well loved.
It's well loved.
See, and that's what matters, right?
Yeah. Oh no, this is Museum of Contemporary Art, Los Angeles. It says. I mean, Philadelphia had the retrospective. Maybe that was its East Coast version.
Publisher
but this is Rizzoli. Yeah. So, well, Mike, you're welcome to borrow it anytime you want. I know you'll take good care of it. So, where's your white gloves? Put the book down. Oh, good. Am gets me. Am, you were not here for the Mike Rader unboxing where I had white gloves, and I received a fair bit of flack about that from a certain partner of mine. But that's okay. I didn't want to open them.
Yeah. Aren't you glad he did, though? Yes.
Let's see. Am's like, I have to watch it on YouTube, which I can't wait to, by the way. Yeah, check that out. That's a really good one. Pumpkin Audrey's like, get out the white gloves. Okay, so we're all on the same page here. Well, we are closing in on 9:07, and I just want to tell you a couple of things really quickly. So number one, if you like that idea of going through a sculptor's studio and having a look about, you're going to love next week's show. We are actually going to be, provided all of the technical gods line up and give me my due, because this stuff just fails so often. But if all of that works out, we're going to be live in the studio of a fellow sculptor who I'm really excited to have on. That's going to be a great time. We're gonna dig into it. We're gonna show a little bit of his work. Mm-hmm. Then we're gonna see him live in his studio, and by live I mean through a virtual connection.
Of course, yes.
So that's gonna be next Tuesday night's show, which I'm thrilled about. Also, this week we are gonna head over to the Hunterdon Museum, where we are going to look at the work of Laura Moriarty, and we are going to film. We're gonna do a little film segment there.
Yeah. We're really excited because we haven't been to a show since this whole pandemic started. So this is our first, I guess, date.
Yeah.
In like a year.
We haven't been on a date in forever.
Yeah, February 14th, 2020 was our last date.
We went to a really, really nice
Really
cocktail
nice,
bar,
yeah,
listened to
with
somebody
the
play
ice
piano,
cubes, yeah,
nice
it was-
big square cube,
Yeah. Yeah, and that was it.
and that's the end of it.
Yeah. So this is exciting.
I'm not even going to tell them about how just before we went on, you were talking about how romance has this like bell curve, and you know, we're on the other side. I'm just.
I was just looking to see how much should we drink.
Oh,
here.
I'm joking.
Aw.
The official Duck Squad's like, hello, drink. You toast me now. This is to official Duck Squad, and actually, it is
Cheers.
probably our time to.
It is.
It's our time to head off the
Yeah,
air.
I think so.
Right? So, to those of you who are, here all the time, we love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting us. We really appreciate it. We love bringing this to you. We are so excited about where this show has come and where it's going.
Yeah.
So, cheers to all of you. We look
Cheers.
forward to seeing you next Tuesday night.
Yes.
And we will talk to you then.
Good night.
Good night. Oh my God, where's the thing we used to go out with? Oh, there it is.
All right.